Have you ever tasted a wine and thought, wow, that's quite salty? Well, I'm going to tell you about all my favourite wines that taste a bit salty. Just got to clean up before Warlass comes home. He's not going to like this. If you, like me, enjoy salty tastes in your mouth when you're drinking wine, then I'm going to show you all of my favourite salty wines. I'm not an expert on chemistry and I couldn't find that much information about how that salty flavours gets in the wine. But I suppose it's a perception, so it's how your tongue perceives that saltiness. That minerality that you feel in your palate isn't necessarily bits of rocks floating around in the wine. It's more like how your palate perceives that through acidity and other things. I don't know about you, but I tend to taste it in white wines more than red wines. Anywhere that's got like a salty sea air blowing in, you're gonna get salty wines. Places that are on islands. One of the most obvious styles of wine that for me are really salty is the Canary Islands. Beautiful high acid wines made out of Listan or Palomino, as you might come across in Spain. So those island wines where all of that Atlantic wet sea air blows in all the time, some of that salt is going to end up in the wine, especially in the more lower intervention type vineyards where the grapes are very healthy and they're not getting sprayed all the time and all that salt gets washed off. Even the native yeast is going to be on the skins as well, so you don't want to wash all that off. There's some absolutely beautiful wines from the Canary Islands, from Tenerife, La Palma, where that volcano is erupting. There's great ones from Gran Canaria. And then if you head over to Spain, on the northwest of Spain, where all the Albarino is, there's salt there. Northern Spain, super salty. What's the secret?
Well, the Atlantic, of course.
Proximity to the Atlantic.
That's it.
And that's it. Some of the saltiest wines I've come across in Spain have been from the region where they make sherry. So all of those sort of white, chalky looking soils. I don't know if it's the grape variety Palomino as well, but those wines just seem to be super salty. I don't know if you've ever seen the wines from Santorini. It's very windy in Santorini, so all of the grapes have to be trained quite low in these little basket-shaped vines. Windy, salty air is blowing in all the time. So the vines, the grapes, the vineyards, the soil, everything's covered in salt. And also very high acid wines as well. Acidity in the wines might even make the salt seem even more salty, I don't know. So what about France? Well, if we head to the Loire, we've got the Muscadet region, which is right next to the sea. Your wines are so salty. Yes. Like Muscadet and oysters, you can't underestimate how good that is as a pairing. But it's not just those vineyards next to the sea. These sorts of wines, Sauvigniers, they've always got this saltiness on the finish. And if you're blind tasting these sorts of Chenin from the Loire, you can sometimes feel that salt in the end. All of these top Chenins, they tend to have like schist soils. So maybe it's the schist in the soil, or maybe it's the composition of the minerals in the soil. Maybe it's all that suffering and digging through rocks that makes these wines so salty. I don't know, but they're salty. The saltiest wine I've ever tasted in my life has to be Salvadoce. You're not going to forget this bottle in a hurry. Someone's drawn on it with a crayon or something. There's some of the most spectacular, beautiful looking vineyards you've ever seen, right on the sea in the north of Italy, on that bit where it goes round. Like, some of the vines are literally on a cliff edge right next to the sea. So you can imagine how that affects the grapes. There's a lot of salt crystals that go on the grapes. While I open this Salvadoce, you often get people say that Chablis smells like oyster shells. It is true, like sometimes when you stick your nose in a glass of Chablis, you can smell the sea. Limestone in the soil, all of that stuff was like on the seabed at one point in time, and now it's a vineyard thousands of years later. So there's something to do with that as well. And that's all complex chemistry that I don't know much about. Yeah, you do sometimes get salty Chablis wines, and that's part of the reason why those wines pair so well with seafood. Speaking of calcareous soils, this Salvadoce is limestone soils right on the seaside. It's a grape variety called Pegato, which not many people have heard of. Woo! Salty as fuck. Jesus Christ. Wow. I've just opened this wine and the aromas are very reductive. It's like if you just lit a match, like that gun flint sort of smell. It's really, really interesting. Normally that can blow off when you give it a bit of swirling, but this is so strong reduction that I think it's gonna probably hang around for quite a while. It's got beautiful texture. It's got energy. It's got me mouth watering. It's the sort of wine that's going to have you reaching for the glass and topping yourself up over and over again. And it's not just the saltiness, it's the masterful reduction It's the textures, it's the big acid, it's that lovely seaside aroma. There's a brilliant video in Vimeo which shows the Salvadoce wine estate and what they've been doing there. It's just amazing. They're so salty they make you do this. I wish I knew more about chemistry and which ions are in the soil and how all of that salt gets in the glass. All I can do is point you towards some of the best salty wines that I've come across. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to let us know what your favourite salty wines are in the comments below. See you next time.